What's up, YouTube family? Gerald Greenlee here with the Pastor's Cave. Man, I hope y'all are having a great day today. Y'all see that Florida State stuff, man. Y'all know got to be a fan in the good times and in the bad times. So anyway, so far we have we're continuing our series of looking at churches that I have had the great pleasure of serving as pastor. We looked at number one, the hurt church. Number two, the church that hurt. Number three, the church I hurt. You see, we're using all the same words here. Now, I think when we get to where I'm currently serving at, the title's going to change a little bit. Of course, this story here is still being written. It is early on Monday morning. I don't even know what time it is. 6 o'clock now. So I've been here this morning doing a little bit of Bible reading and praying. And so, yeah, this morning I want to talk about... And this may potentially be a long video. This is still a church that is near and dear to my heart. And what do I mean by the church I hurt? Let me just give you a little bit of background. When I went to the church before this one, I had been looking for, praying for, seeking a full-time church. And so God opened the door for me to go to this particular church that I'm talking about. Really, I believe, I'm not going to go into the backstory of it, but I mean, it just worked out so smoothly. From the day that one of the people on the search committee made contact with me to the day that the church voted for me to become their next pastor, it was just such a smooth process, just an answer to prayer. I had come out of a church that was difficult, and I found this church, the people, to be extremely loving. I also found the congregation to be an extremely generous congregation. It was different also than anything that my family and I had ever experienced. Now, it was a lot like our home church. Our home church was it was financially stable, doing very well. Our home church had a great children's and youth ministry. As a matter of fact, I was a non-paid youth leader at my home church. That's kind of how I got my start in ministry. And we had a great youth student ministry. And of course, we had a great ladies ministry, men's ministry, prayer ministry. We just had a lot of things going for us. And so after 5 years of being a pastor, around 3 years at one church and 2.5 years at one church and really about 20 months at another church. Here I was finally back at a church that in a lot of ways was like my home church, in that it had a lot going on. And so when I arrived, since this is nothing bad, I will use the name. When I arrived at Oakwind Baptist Church, it was a very active church. As a matter of fact, I got there about 2 weeks before Vacation Bible School started, and we had one of many great Vacation Bible Schools. I remember there the student ministry. There was probably at Bible school, and I'm guessing between middle and high schoolers, there was I'd say at least 20 there. And just a bunch of kids. It was just really a great church, really a loving church. And it was a loving church till, well, even to this day. I still talk to a lot of those people. Sometimes I still go meet them and have breakfast with the some of the folks that I used to have breakfast with there, a big group that comes from the church on Tuesday mornings and at Hog and Bones, and so it was just it was a great church. Now, it was a needy church in some sense that like any church. When I got there, things were running really well, and I stayed at this church almost 10 years, and so I think the downfall in some sense was we just didn't do a great job at making disciples. We did not do a great job of raising up the next round or batch, or even if you want to say generation of leaders. And so what happens over the course of time is you just don't have the people that you need to lead. Now, a lot of things happened in that. One of them was COVID. And we had some extremely good times before COVID come. And when I say the whole time I was there was good, but I'm talking about in terms of finances. I got my brace off. I've got to be careful touching my hand here. In terms of finances, in terms of attendance, I can remember a time when my deacons and I were meeting, and we were trying to figure out, the sanctuary was very close to capacity, and we were trying to figure out what we were going to do. But between COVID, and I really think I take, the reason I say the church I hurt is I take responsibility. I think if you're a leader, you have to take responsibility for the way things go. Now, not everything's in your control, but at the end of the day, even in pastoral ministry, there is this sense in where with the pastor, the buck stops here, And so I take full responsibility for that, that we didn't do a better job at making disciples. We didn't do a better job at raising up the next generation of leaders. And the other thing about me that is problematic, and I know this, in fact, I discussed this with our leadership team at that church, is I'm a doer. I'm a hands-on guy. I like to get involved. The problem is, if you begin to do too much, it hinders other people growing and other people stepping into those roles, because you end up doing what you would be raising up other people to do. So I hope that makes sense. I'm trying to, sometimes you have trouble finding the words to explain, what you want to do. And so in the process of being at that church, man, we did a lot of renovations. We did a lot of upgrades at the church. I did a lot of upgrades at the pastorium, or the parsonage. If you don't know what that is, it's a home that the church owns that they allow the pastor to live in while he serves there as the pastor, and just really helps out with housing and things of that nature. And, so I'm a doer by nature. I like to work on things. It's one of the reasons that I still have a small lawn business on the side. I've scaled it way back, but, I enjoy doing. Now, the problem with that is, as a pastor, you are called to equip the saints for the work of ministry. So anytime I begin to dabble in, whether it's lawn care, whether it's, you can see when my fingers are separated there, I see it on the camera. Hopefully they're going to be able to fix that. But anyway, when you begin to dabble in all these other things, they aren't necessarily bad things, but they can take your focus off of that which is most important. Now, I'm not saying I'm over that. I still do that. I don't think it's a matter of you can't do anything else, but there has to be balance there. And one of the things that I think over the course of my ministry there, I just lost balance. And I was just always working on something. And so what happens is, and again, I'm not faulting the church for this, it kind of, at some point, it takes a transition. So at one time, I'm doing these things because this is what I love to do, to I've done these things so long that nobody else thinks that they need to do them, right? And now, that's not the reason I left the church, because I know some of my folks who are there who I dearly love. Some of you are watching this video and you're trying to figure out why I left, because I really couldn't give a good reason when I left, and I still don't have necessarily a good reason, other than uh, I just think it was time. I think the Lord moved me from there. Uh, I hated that the Lord moved me from there. Most people hated that the Lord moved me from there, um, but I am saying this, though I think the Lord moved me from there, I would probably contend now that the Lord moved me from there due to some of my actions. So I've had now a little over 2 years of hindsight that I can look back on, and just try to work through these different scenarios. So what happens is, I think what happened in my case, I took on a lot of stuff probably that I shouldn't have really been doing. And as you do stuff, people don't see the need to do it. And so what happens is, as a pastor, I just became the one that was doing all of this. And I say it's my own fault, because especially early on, I would have guys say, "Hey, preacher, you don't need to be doing that. We'll do that." And, yada, 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 especially on some of the work side. But really, more than just the work side, it was probably the administration side of the church. And that's something that I've just never enjoyed doing, and I just never really had people who had a real interest in doing those things. But again, I'm one of those that I say, for example, we need to write some policies for this. Well, I say something like that and nobody steps up to do it, then I just do it. And as a pastor, as a leader, what I really should have done is been more active in enlisting people and just saying, "Hey, you need to do this. Somebody in this church needs to do this." I don't know who it is. I don't know who the Lord's gifted in this area, but the Lord has to have somebody here to do these things, and you need to do them. Now, that's just an example, just a random example that I'm pulling out of a hat, so to speak. But so I think when you take all of that, these things that I took on, it becomes a gravity. And so that gravity, the gravity of ministry, I call it, it begins to weigh on you. And what that does is it begins to lead to a burnout. All of a sudden, you don't enjoy every day getting up and going to the office. You don't enjoy going to meetings. You don't enjoy just doing the things that are necessary for ministry. And that leads in some ways to burnout. As a matter of fact, I told our deacons, let me get me a drink of coffee. I told our deacons when I was leaving there, after I announced to the church I was resigning, a couple of days later, I had a meeting with our deacons, and they said, "Why? Why? We don't understand. Can't we work on this? Isn't there something that we can do?" And rightly so. There were a couple of them that were aggravated because I just got up in front of the church and resigned rather than talking to them first. But the truth of the matter is, 16 hours before I resigned, I was the only one that knew. I told my wife, and then I let my children know. And, so they wouldn't be surprised. But they really felt like whatever it was, it's something that we could have worked through, it's something that we could have managed. And all I could really tell them was this, and this is, I want you to understand the weight of this ministry. that I had created myself. So I'm not blaming anybody here. Um, it had made me indecisive. And for about 6 months, I had just lost a vision for the church. And by that, I mean, I could not, I could not in any way like look into the future and see where we were in 6 months, in 12 months. It's, it's, it's kind of hard to explain, but I just didn't see myself there in the future. And so when you don't have a long range goal or a long range vision, you don't really have anything to work towards. And so I noticed for about 6 months, I wasn't planning for the future. And I mean something as simple as uh, some of the people at the church, if you watch this video, this may be the first time you realize this. I didn't even have a speaker for our homecoming service, which was about 4 months before I left. I didn't even get a speaker for the homecoming service until just a few weeks before homecoming. I just wasn't working in the future. So, uh, you know, normally in January, February, as a pastor, man, you're already thinking about Vacation Bible School, and you got somebody that's leading Vacation Bible School, but you're already thinking about, okay, what are some marching orders for that person? What are some things that I want that person to do so that we can hopefully have a very effective Vacation Bible School, right? And so those thoughts they just weren't there, and to me, that was just a sign that it wasn't fair to the church. The church had been so good to me. They had been so generous to me. They had been so loving to me that really I got to a point that with a good conscience, I couldn't keep taking a paycheck because I wasn't providing for that church what I had been called to provide as a pastor. Now, I think a lot of that just had to do with burnout. I think it had to do with self-inflicted wounds. And I still do that where I'm at here now. Now, I'm not the pastor here, so my role's a little bit different. I got a lot more time to do these little piddling projects, as I call them. I love doing that stuff. I'm one of those kind of guys. If y'all follow me on Facebook, you know Pastor Gabe and we have a tremendous amount of fun, right? But I see my role here uh, as taking care of uh, the things that would slow him down in ministry of the word, in ministry to people. And so I work on those things. Now I still preach some. I still teach a lot. I'm still active in the life of the church and going and checking on people, calling and checking on people, sending cards and all that kind of stuff. But I do not have that weight of ministry on me like you would have in a role if you were a single staff senior pastor of a church. And so my role here, what I'm trying to do is and I'll talk more about this in the next video, but my role here, I'm trying to make sure that he doesn't burn out in ministry. Our church, we gave him he took a sabbatical last summer where he took a whole month off, and and I almost did that at my last church because I was tired. I didn't have a vision for the future, and the thought crossed my mind. I said, and I think here's where I want to get into some application stuff. The thought crossed my mind. I said, maybe I should just take a month off, just get away, relax, pray, read the Bible, read some good leadership books, and maybe I could come back recharged. And why didn't I do that? Well, I've told a couple of people this. I was afraid that if I took a month off, and look, these folks would have gave me they would have gave me 2 months off. They would have gave me anything I asked for. I know they would have. I think one, if we're honest as pastors, um, if we're not careful, there's a degree of pride. So when you say, you know what, I need a break, I'm overwhelmed, I just need to step back, we feel like in some sense that we failed, right? Because we have this idea that, uh, the pastor is, he can't have problems, right? Now, I know better than that, and I tell the church that. But there is this idea, everybody in the church can have problems, but the pastor can't have problems, right? People think the pastor's family's perfect. Hey, man, our marriages, our family life, we have the same struggles that everybody else do. But I do think sometimes for a pastor, it's hard to do that. Now, I don't think that's the case with me necessarily, but, we would always deny our own pride. The issue for me was this. I was afraid that I would take a month off and nothing would be different. And so I could not, with a good conscience, take a month off and then come back and say, hey, I'm quitting, right? To me, that would have been so much worse. And so I know what would have happened. If I would have took a month off, I really believe this deep down inside, no matter how I felt at the end of that month, I would have stayed. That might have meant, now I don't know how it would have worked out, but it might have meant that I stayed and I was recharged and things were great. But it also might have meant that I came back the same person that left, and that I was still tired, I was still burnt out, I still didn't have a vision for the future, and the church was just paying me to exist, right? But I would have probably stayed at least a while longer because I would have felt so guilty about them once again being so good to me, and then me come. I knew I wouldn't be able to bring myself to leave, and so again, there's just so much to consider there. But I feel like, that's just what had to be done. So I think in the practical things, because it is very, very likely that if pastors watch this video, that you will find yourself at some point, I don't want to say overwhelmed, but just tired, just a lack of vision for the future. And, I just encourage you, pray about it. Is there a part of me that wishes I would have took the time? Yeah, there is. Not that I don't love where I'm at now, not that I don't love what I'm doing now. There's a part of me that, and this may just be the flesh, there is a part of me that will always be grieved over hurting people, kind of letting people down, if you will, that had invested so heavily in me and my family, right? And that's just kind of, it's a scar, man. It'll always be there. I know there's not any hard feelings. Those folks let me live 9 months in their pastorium after I resigned, or 8 months or something like that, while I built a house. Guys in that church helped me build my little house that I have, right? So, golly, you can't help but hurt for people like that, right? And so, and I say I hurt the church, not in leaving. Yeah, that hurt. It hurt me too. But I hurt the church in that somewhere along the lines, I probably took on things that I shouldn't have instead of equipping other people to do those things. And I want to encourage you, Pastor, if you watch this, don't be you can't be a one-person team, right? You need to share the workload, not because you're lazy, not because you want to go fishing, not because you want to do something else, but you got to do it because people have to be equipped to do the work, right? And you need to be raising up a new generation or the next wave of leadership. And so here's the deal: every church that I've been at, I've learned something. I've learned something from that church that I could take to the next church, right? And that's what we should do. I've always wanted to be the guy that went somewhere and stayed somewhere 25 years, though. And that just isn't how it's worked out. But, I don't know. Maybe I'll be here 25 years. Who knows, right? So, anyway, do the work of a pastor. Equip the saints for the work of the ministry. Appreciate y'all taking the time to watch. My prayer for you is always the same, that the Lord might richly bless you, and that you might see all of your blessings as from Him.